Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, reunion. Let's see what happens.
I think we both disrespected our partners and we disrespected, other people here. I think the only thing both of us can do is own up to it and apologize and hope to do better. I think the fact that we were really close made it a little harder.
Okay, so she is not saying anything that's annoying me. And yeah, I think she's saying all the things that I would hope someone would say in the brief amount of time that she has here.
Flirting and what is infidelity, and that was physical intimacy. That was the boundary, and I knew what I was willing to do and what I wasn't. And so it's for the very same reason that I wasn't threatened with the Micah and Kwame flirting scenario. Like, we knew what we were capable of doing and what we were going to do and what we weren't.
Huh. Wow. So they had a conversation prior to the pool scene that delineated what was okay in their relationship, and it was physical intimacy according to him, and everything else was okay, which is fine. If that's how it really felt to them, then of course everyone has a different boundary there. I'll take their word for it, but that's hard to visualize, that you would just be totally okay with your partner openly expressing. Because Micah wasn't just saying, oh, I had a connection with you. I can't remember all the words, obviously, that they were saying, but from my memory, Micah was, I think, saying, like, you're the one for me, Kwame, and Paul, and by implication, Paul isn't. I could be misremembering, but anyway, at the very least, they had a conversation, according to Paul, and he's saying that we both said to each other it was okay to flirt on a certain level as long as you just don't make out with someone or have sex with someone. Then, I think it's within the bounds of reasonability. And so that's why when I was flirting with Irina, or Irina was flirting with me, I just knew that it was that what he's saying?
Capable of doing and what we were going to do and what we weren't. And
So there was a line, and you don't feel that you crossed that line?
Yeah, I knew that there was no danger in talking to Irina, flirting, whatever. There was no danger of affecting either our relationship or their relationship, or lack thereof.
The beauty.
So I guess another possibility is that Paul knew he wasn't that into Micah earlier on and thought, like, look, it's fine if you want to flirt because I'm not that into you anyway. I mean, that would be a long shot because, well, it's hard to know what Paul, at what point at some point Paul figured out he didn't want to be with Micah forever, right? And when was that? And I don't know if we'll ever find out because Paul is so reserved and he wasn't very expressive. And they didn't really focus on him very much. So we'll probably never know that. But I guess it's possible that he made an early decision and then, I don't know. I'm probably reading into it.
Of this reunion is for you guys to get a chance to say your piece, clear things up, like rumors about Babs. I got to talk about this video. Y'all, by the way, on the internet are savage. Y'all found a video and you slowed it down where Paul is leaving the bridal suite.
This is amazing. I was like already planning on reacting to this video at some point because people were sending it to me, but they're going to provide it on the show, or it'll be much easier this way. Yeah, I mean, I've reviewed the video myself, and it's inconclusive what it meant. But to me, the most Occam's razor. So if you don't know, there's this video of Paul as he's leaving the wedding, I think, or he's about to get married, it's during that day. And the bridesmaids, I think, are standing in a hallway and he's trying to get to a door. Someone kind of walks in front of the screen. And then if you really look closely, you see him with the back of his hand tap one of the women on the side or the flank or the butt or something as he's going out the door. And the woman turns around and kind of smiles, like nervously, like, huh? And looked at in a certain way, if you're primed or you're looking for bad things, it looks like Paul is either non-consensually touching a woman and or that he is communicating to someone he's having an affair with or something. And there were all those speculations. And then I just said, okay, put that aside. Because if you're primed with that, look at Paul cheating, and it kind of looks that way. Because it did to me when I first saw it. But then I thought, okay, put that aside, just really watch it. thought, the most likely answer is that he bumped into her and, was having a pretty chaotic emotional time of the wedding. And he bumps into her, is like, oh, I'm sorry. And he didn't even know where he was tapping her, but he tapped her with a backhand as he's walking out. So I'm pretty sure that's what is the case. But, who knows?
Suite, y'all put an arrow where he's trying to move his way out of the bridal suite, tapping a little bridesmaid's tush. Let's take a look at this video, see what you think about it.
All our history's hazy, like driving in the pouring rain.
Yeah. Is it a great idea that he just... But you see, it's exactly how I described it and remember it. You don't really see it, but his shoulder kind of bumps her. And she is in the way, so it'd be hard for him not to because he's trying to get out the door. And the woman is the mom, by the way. But you see him do that, and then you see her face. She has, because I think she's thinking, oh, she doesn't expect it to happen. So I think she's like, whoa.
Are we in too deep to heal?
Yeah, I mean, if you're primed or if you're a very suspicious individual, then yeah, it does look like, wait, so if you just saw that video, you would think that they were a couple or they were flirting or something like that. At least, I don't know, I think. But again, Occam's razor, the most likely answer. I think Occam's razor, the principle is that the conclusion that requires the fewest amount of leaps in terms of logic, in terms of assumptions, is the most likely answer. It doesn't mean it is the answer, because sometimes there are answers to questions, to inquiries that are involving a lot of leaps of assumptions. But if we just sort of think the likelihood is probably just an innocent bump, and he's just like, huh? And then she's like, whoa.
All our history's hazy, like driving in the pouring rain. Are we
She also knows that she's being filmed. I don't think that's a phone camera. I imagine that that's an actual, footage, unless that's just one of the other people at the thing. But at the very least, the look on her face is probably reflective of also just the nervousness of the situation. Oh, yeah, what's happening? I don't know. Am I giving people the benefit of the doubt too much? What do you think?
Paul is here now. What the heck? Like, seriously.
Okay. So to imply that was anything more than me just gesturing, acknowledging that I was squeezing past her, or kind of bumped into her shoulder is literally absurd.
Yeah. Maybe he's lying, but if he's not, which I don't think he is. Now, I don't know, but from my understanding is literally tens of thousands of people were assuming the most salacious story, which is bothersome. Imagine being in Paul's shoes. You're just like, wait, what? And well, that's why you don't go on a reality TV show. That's why you'll never see me on one. I mean, they would never ask me to be on one, but if they did, no.
Literally just walking out of the door and gesturing just like, hey, sorry, I bumped into you. Like, that was it.
Yeah. Sorry, I bumped into you, baby.
You can bump into me anytime, baby.
Bump into you anytime.
Bump into me anytime.
I will say one of the most shocking moments.
Now, you could argue that he shouldn't be doing that kind of thing. There's a lot of other options that he could have done. He could have tapped her lightly on the shoulder. He could have just said, oh, sorry. Instead, he just haphazardly backhands her lightly on the backside, which probably wasn't invited, right? And, but who knows how she felt about it. But in general, right, I wouldn't recommend that people gesture that way unless they absolutely know that the other person is okay with it, which, wouldn't be likely. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We often talk about a work-life balance, right? But how often do we talk about a balance between time for others and time for ourselves? It's so easy to get caught up in thinking about what everyone else wants from us and never taking the time for ourselves. And of course, therapy can help you with that balance. I mean, just going to therapy is taking time for yourself, right? I've had many clients who will do this. They will come into my office, sit down on my couch, and let out a big sigh of relief because I think for the first time in a week, they're actually taking time to think about what they need. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's worth giving a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient and suited to your schedule. And also, you can switch therapists at any time at no additional charge. So, find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
And Micah, if Paul had said yes, would you guys be married today?
Sorry.
Okay, so I'm so confused by Micah because of the wide variety of behaviors that we saw. But I think there's evidence that she legit had feelings for Paul and legit was hurt when he said no, and maybe legit actually wanted to marry him. I mean, I feel bad even suggesting that that's not what happened, because that's certainly on the surface the way it looked, the things that everyone said. But I'm just having a hard time matching everything up, with each other and not having some. If I was to take a guess, I would say that given what we've seen at the wedding and now, is that it did hurt her that he broke up with her, and she wasn't totally sure that she wanted to marry him. That would just be a guess. Or she wasn't necessarily thinking it all the way through, that what she was agreeing to do was actually a long-term thing. Like, she was thinking more short-term of, well, yeah, I'd love to be with him. I'd love to spend more time with him, but not, I don't know. Because I'm just trying to fit everything together with the things that we see with other couples, like with Brett and Tiffany, the behavior that we saw from Micah, not only in flirting with Kwame in a very overt way, but also with the other kinds of behaviors that just didn't seem to be taking much of it seriously. I don't know. It's a conundrum, and we might not ever know, and I guess I'll just have to live with that ambiguity. But I will say that I feel bad for her. I hope everyone feels bad for her, unless you're sure, which would be weird, that she's faking this. It's hard to fake this kind of thing. People can, but it's hard. There's a certain kind of crime. I talk about this sometimes, and I'm not saying that I can read people's minds based on body language, but I talk about how I'm a professional observer of people crying. I hadn't realized that until years into my career, but out of everyone on the planet, therapists, and especially professor therapists, might see a wide variety of people crying throughout the day. And there are different kinds of crying. I also will talk about how if you've ever had a young child, you will become very good at being able to read the type of crying in your infant. There are many different types of crying. There's crying just like, and then there's scary crying where it jolts you. Oh, something bad is happening. So another person outside of the family, or someone who hasn't spent a lot of time with kids. And I guess when I think about it, when I was a kid, I grew up with a lot of crying as well because of my mom's daycare. Kids cry sometimes. And throughout my life, for years and years, not only just my younger brother and I guess myself, but also all those kids. There were, 10 kids, 10, 15 kids just roaming around in my house, sometimes in my bedroom, that occasionally would be crying about various different things. And I noticed myself as an adult. I'd be on the bus or something with a friend, and there would be a baby crying on the other side of the bus, and my friend would be very agitated, just be like, "What's going on with that baby? Get that baby to be quiet." And I would hear it, but it wouldn't aggravate me because I was just so used to it. It was just part of the background. It didn't stress me out. And to this day, that's how it is. Maybe that's a factor in how I'm always yammering at everyone to be okay with crying, because I grew up with so much of it. It's just a normal part of life. So, and I guess, the way my mom, as the daycare person, the way she would react to people crying, she wouldn't shame people, to my memory anyway. Anyway, so I have I don't know, maybe it's a delusion, self-delusion, that I feel like I have the ability to kind of detect when it's more likely that someone's being authentic and they're crying. So the intuition I have, and I can't know if it's true, and I could be self-deluding myself, for her, I'm guessing what happens is right now she's being reminded of being rejected, and There's a certain kind of crying where we feel sorry for ourselves, not in a pathological, narcissistic way, but in a way that is, I think, clearly evolved. When we feel sorry for ourselves, when we're like, something bad is happening to me, we will feel sad, and we might be provoked to cry as a way of trying to elicit attention in a good way, and also to alert people that they're hurting us. Children will do this, and I hope all of us will do this. Adults will sometimes try not to do this, but someone's yelling at you unfairly and you feel hurt and then you cry. And I think the evolved social mechanism is that the person yelling at you will see, oh, you're hurt, and will stop doing that. It's a very quick way of pulling at the heartstrings of other people. At least, hopefully, that's what happens. Of course, you have abusive people that don't really care, or they might even harm you more because you're crying. And anyway, so I think it's in that category of just like, oh, I'm hurt, and maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe, I don't know, like I'm rejectable, or I guess I'm kind of stretching a little bit, but that's the way it felt to me at the wedding, and that's kind of how it feels to me now. Because another part of this that I will see is when I'm watching these various reality TV shows, there is fake crying that I will see sometimes that will give off, and that's another thing that you notice, not with clients, but with kids. If you spent time with kids, like I have, you will see that some kids will fake cry. I imagine there might be 1 out of 50 kids who don't do this, but the vast majority will. At some point, they will learn, you know what? If I really want to get my way, or if I want to get some sympathy, crying seems to work. So maybe if I actually manufacture it or sort of push it out, kind of like method acting that an actor will engage in a movie where they can cry on command. They think of a certain thing, and children learn how to do that, for better or for worse. And you can kind of tell, if you're a parent, you can usually tell the difference, particularly when they're younger. When they get older, they might get really good at it. But when they're 3 or 4, you can usually tell, like, okay, you're pushing it out. They might have tears, they might have actual water coming out of their eyes, but you can just kind of tell. And I can tell, or at least I think I can tell sometimes in these shows, where someone is having a lot of the markers of crying, but one, they don't have a lot of actual tears coming out of their eyes. Another tell is that there's a lot of snot. When you cry, there's a hell of a lot of snot that you can't control. There's also a way the body kind of reacts involuntarily, where you're like, that kind of involuntary skip of breathing. And there's that. There's also a way that people, and the other thing that I'll say is that when people cry, typically they're trying not to cry because they're ashamed, or they are just not wanting to be vulnerable. They don't want to feel sad. Often crying is something that emerges from our subconscious, something that emerges from our body, even though our mind is like, okay, please don't cry. And there's a way that it comes out, right? Whereas on the show sometimes, which I'm not seeing right here, people will cry and it seems like they're definitely going with it. Now, they could just be healthy about their crying, but sometimes it feels like it's more forced. And I think another tell is when there's people will raise their voice. They will, and that seems to be something that might have evolved when they were younger. When they were 4, they might actually, as a way of trying to gain sympathy, maybe because they're being abused, I don't know. But they will, as they're trying to push out crying or fake crying, they will raise the pitch of their voice, like, I'm just really sad. And of course, when you're sad and crying, you might do that naturally, but I think that more often than not, when people are doing that, it is potentially, I don't know, it's a sign. And so I'm not seeing any of that right now in her. I'm not saying I can read people's minds. There's a lot of bullshit on the internet about body language and reading people's minds and eye movements and stuff, and all that is hokum. There's some research in this area, but I'm just saying that this is my anecdotal experience that I, again, could be self-deluding myself.
I got the golden tissue box. Thank you.
Sorry. All the pressure's been off me, so I kind of forgot I was here.
So you kind of hear that, the breathing interruptions, that's hard to fake. It could be faked, but it's harder to fake.
And I don't care what anyone thinks why I did it. That was my life and my relationship and a real marriage that was on the line. And I knew that I was going to say yes. And I didn't want to spend the rest of our life, if he was to say yes, wondering if he did it not to embarrass me.
Yeah. I mean, this is good. Makes me want to cry. And so she's saying that she wanted him to go first because she had empathy for him. That she didn't want to say yes and put him in a position where, oh, it really kind of makes me cry. It's a sad situation that she would feel this like, well, I don't want to make him out to be a bad person. So if he's no, then if he just says no to me and there's a question mark as to what I would have said, then that is much better for him. That will save him from bullying on the internet and maybe from himself and family than if I say yes and then he has to say no to me. That's a high level of empathy right there, is it not? So that's good. And I don't know. I tend to believe her. All right. Well, tune in next time. I'm going to continue watching. And everyone, please take care of yourself. Take care of others because we all deserve it. We really, really do.